The great thing about the most notable Disney villains is the fact that the writers took the time to give each one an in-depth reason for acting the way they did, including the fact that some villains were literally molded by the world around them, or worse, by the damaging effects of a family's betrayal. And in this particular case, the character that comes to mind is Hades from Disney's classic Hercules. Hades was a formidable foe, not because of his physical strength, but because of the strength of his mind. Believe it or not, though, the blue-flamed sack of comedic sorrow only became a villain after he was practically forced into the role by his own family. Now, this isn't to say that his family was so cruel to him that Hades became a villain, though that's surely a part of it. But it's more so that Hades' family literally saw him as a villain. One of the best parts about Hades is that he wore his emotions on his sleeve, and because of that, his literally raging hot temper was always visible. Throughout the movie and even the series, though it's technically not considered canon, you could always tell when Hades was upset based on the color and intensity of the flames on his head. Whenever he would lose his cool, his typically blue flaming hair would turn into a deep yellow-orange and his skin would turn from blue to red. It was very noticeable and most likely something that happened to Hades throughout his entire life, and that means that all of Hades' godly siblings would have grown up knowing whenever Hades was in a bad mood, which, judging by his character in the film, was quite often. This could have had a major effect on how his family viewed him, especially considering that Hades was one of the eldest members of their family, meaning that, at one point or another, every one of the gods on Mount Olympus most likely looked up to Hades, only to come to the conclusion that he was filled with anger and hatred. Meanwhile, Zeus, on the other hand, was slightly younger than Hades, but the stark opposite. Where Hades was physically weak, Zeus was powerful, and while Hades was engulfed by the flames of rage, Zeus was likely giving off his gold god-like glow, and that could be why all of the gods decided to anoint Zeus as their leader rather than Hades. They may not have wanted to risk giving that much power to someone who they possibly viewed as evil because he wore his emotions so clearly. Little did they know, though, Zeus and his siblings treating Hades like he was evil may have been the very thing that turned him into the villain Disney portrayed him to be. And when you really think about it, Hades' family even made him look like he was a villain to the mortals who worship them. Most people in real life, and in the Disney movie, immediately think of Hades as an evil being who wants to take their soul and damn it for all eternity. But that's not the case at all, not in Hercules or the mythos that the movie was based on. You see, much like in Greek mythology, the movie made it clear that Hades didn't want anything to do with the underworld, but he had no choice. He was given the realm as a gift by his younger brother Zeus after he managed to imprison the Titans who currently ruled everything that existed. According to the movie as well as the myth, after defeating the Titans, Zeus split the world into three realms: the sky, the sea, and the underworld. And while assuming his place on the throne of Mount Olympus, Zeus also took it upon himself to distribute the realms as he saw fit. He took the sky for himself, gave the sea to his brother Poseidon, and then lastly gifted the underworld to his older brother Hades. Now, there could have been a whole bunch of reasons for giving Hades the underworld, such as his cranky demeanor, but no matter what the reasons were, Hades didn't have much of a choice. And sadly, this mistreatment from his brother in the form of a thoughtless gift caused Hades to become a villain of the people. Or at least, that's how the mortals likely saw him. When you think about it, none of the humans would have known that Hades didn't want to be ruler of the underworld, and they likely assumed that he enjoyed the position as the god of the dead. And if you've seen the movie, then you know that couldn't be farther from the truth. The one thing that Hades wanted more than anything else was to stop being associated with the underworld. He didn't like his position as the ruler of the dead, and he likely didn't enjoy the dark perception that the mortals had of him. But his family couldn't see past his heated demeanor, and therefore they had no idea how much Hades despised the underworld, meaning that Hades was stuck there only to be molded into the villain that fans all know him as. And in the case of Disney, even the Fates seemed to know that Hades was destined to become a villain at the hands of his family, though they didn't quite phrase it like that. In Hercules, the Fates were depicted as a trio of deities who all shared a single eye. This eye was special, though, because it was all-seeing. Not only could it see the present, but the past and future as well. The Fates were also responsible for deciding when someone was supposed to die, and when their time came, they would cut that mortal's thread of life. The mortal's soul would then be sent into the underworld, where it was trapped inside the Well of Souls. And due to their connection with death and the underworld, the Fates also had a pretty strong connection with Hades, which was shown in the movie. It was shortly after Hades met Hercules for the first time and he left Mount Olympus embarrassed that he was injured by Zeus's newborn when Disney introduced introduced the Fates. Hades returned to the underworld and promptly met with the Fates to hear of his future, which is when the omnipotent trio revealed his future villainy. Though they admitted the fact that Hades only felt the need to go that route after being forced to rule over the underworld, which he didn't want to do. But nonetheless, Hades solidified himself as the villain of Hercules after the Fates revealed that in 18 years he would have the chance to rule over Mount Olympus. But to do so, he would have to do something truly horrible. According to the Fates, Hades would release the Titans that once ruled over the world when all of the planets were aligned, and with their combined power, he would be able to finally take Mount Olympus for himself. And even though that might sound harsh, you have to remember there's a good chance that Hades wouldn't have turned evil if his family simply treated him a bit better in the first place. Now, from the words of Harvey Dent, you either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. And Hades certainly lived long enough to become a villain. After being forced to rule over the underworld by his younger brother, all Hades could do was spend his time figuring out how to get back at his family for the position they put him in. And as soon as the Fates told him that his chance was coming up, he sprang at the opportunity and went fully to the dark side. Knowing that he wouldn't be able to take over the throne with Zeus's child around, Hades ordered his two henchmen, Pain and Panic, to kidnap Hercules and use a special potion that would change everything. Hercules was meant to drink every drop of the potion, which would then turn him into a mortal, giving Pain and Panic the chance to kill him. Yeah, that's pretty dark for a Disney movie, but that's what was supposed to happen. However, the pair didn't get the chance to force the baby to drink the entire potion before they were interrupted by the people who ended up becoming Hercules' adoptive parents. But just because Hercules survived doesn't change the fact that Hades had become the full-time villain the moment he tried to kill a baby. Little did Zeus know, though, the only reason things got to that point was because he treated his elder brother so poorly. Now, there was one thing that was arguably worse than what Hades tried to do to Hercules, but in a way, it still seemed like Hades didn't want to be acting so villainously. The only mortal person who actually felt Hades' wrath in the movie was the sassy and lovable Megara. The movie explains that Meg had sold her soul to Hades in return for her boyfriend's life, and Hades agreed to that deal. He brought her boyfriend back to life, and before he claimed her soul for himself, Hades allowed Meg to feel the pain of her boyfriend abandoning her for another woman. Hades then took Meg's soul and forced her to live alongside him. He even used her for his plans against Hercules. That being said, you can tell throughout the movie that Hades had a soft spot for Meg, and some fans have even speculated that he took her soul to save her from the cruelty of mankind, though that's just a theory. One thing that can be said for certain is that Hades was not fond of his role as the ruler of the underworld, and sadly the people of the mortal world were not fond of him because of it, though it wasn't even his choice, which sort of suggests that the only reason Hades became the villain that Disney made him out to be was because of the way his family treated him and the so-called gift that Zeus granted him. And that's just sad. What do you think about Hades in his position as god of the underworld, though? Was it something that he was destined to do, or was he forced into the role by Zeus only to affirm his place as a villain amongst the gods? Be sure to let me know in the comments below.